This is You've Already Been Hacked, recorded on April 25th, 2025. Welcome back to You've Already Been Hacked. I'm the professor of CyberRisk, and with me is...
Cyber Cowboy. Sorry, I was a few minutes
Cowboy.
late. I was hooking up my horse to the hitch and post, my virtual horse outside. Thanks for installing that, by the way. It's very helpful.
Yeah. It's like Ready Player One. We can just add whatever we need to the studio. It's wonderful. The virtual sock has all the power it needs. Before we get into the top story tonight, folks, I want to bring up something that happened to your professor yesterday. It is 100% related to the podcast. I was nearly socially engineered, and I say nearly, and I mean that in air quotes, because the professor is smart enough to not necessarily fall for it. Although I came, I don't know, 1, 2, 5% close to almost falling for it, and then there were just too many telltale signs that it went away. So here's what happened. Here's the breakdown. On my way to pick up my small digital clones from their education factories, I receive an email from Apple.com from support with a case number stating that they're going to give me a call back at 8:45 professor time in the evening. And I'm like, well, that's weird. So I go into my Apple account. I don't click on any links in the email because, one, I didn't ask for any sort of support call. So I go into Apple support. I look at the case number. The case number says it's for fraudulent activity or logins on my account. And I was like, that's probably not good. So I go into my Apple account. I see what devices are associated with my account. I look at all the information Apple has for me to look at, and everything from where I sit looks normal. So that's strike one. I'm already at yellow alert from a something's going on standpoint. I return to the digital store after picking up my small digital clones. We're sitting here, and as soon as I get back to my office inside the domicile, I get a phone call. And this is now like 3:45 professor time in the afternoon. And it is a very, very suave gentleman with a British accent saying that they are Apple support calling me for malicious activity or suspicious activity on my Apple account. So he explains to me what happened. He explains to me that someone in Singapore attempted to log into my account. He explains that that was blocked because it's not from one of your known devices. He explains that we're calling you to facilitate, to ensure that that your account has multi-factor authentication. Everything he said sounded so legitimate. Like I was ready to be compliant at that point. To a point, right? Because I have had support calls with Apple and executive support calls with Apple in the past, and I kind of know their tone, tenor, and rhythm. And so far, nothing was really out of the ordinary here. I wasn't really convinced one way or the other yet, so I proceeded with the call. Person even informed me, we're not going to ask for your passwords, we're not going to ask for PIN codes, we're not going to ask for your phone number on this phone. We already have your phone number on the other side. And I went, it's fair enough, you called me. The fact that we weren't going to ask for emails, passwords, pins, anything like that, that's a good sign, right? Like this is, they're not going to push a boundary that would set off a person. So then he starts taking me through the process of what they want to do, and they wanted to do something that's called whitelisting. And for those of you that are in cybersecurity, whitelisting obviously means allowable devices or access, right? It is prescribed access. So I went, fine, we can do that. I know what devices should be in my account. I see them. I'm good to go, right? And he went, great. What we need you to do is we need you to go to this website. And as soon as he said this website, before he even said the domain, I said warning in my head.
Red flag.
From there, the website that he wanted me to go to, and I'm going to give everybody all of the information so that you stay away. It is fake. Was apple.deny-form.com. So this is strike two. And I go, all right, sir, we're gonna stop this right here. First of all, that is not an Apple domain you want me to go to. It is not an official Apple domain. That is a subdomain of Apple to a place called deny-form.com. And he's like, yeah, that's our official site for that. We emailed you, right? This was an official email you got from Apple. And I said, yeah, but I'm going to do a DNS lookup on this. And while I'm doing the DNS lookup, I'm also going to do a reverse phone lookup on that. So the reverse phone lookup didn't pull much information and was coming out of San Francisco, which is close to Cupertino. So I was like, meh. But when I did the DNS lookup, the DNS lookup gave me an IP that started off in 91.200. I won't give out the last two because I don't need vigilantism on behalf of the professor. I appreciate it, but it's not needed. 91.200, and it went to a autonomous system in Frankfurt, Germany, which I'm very certain that Apple doesn't have an AS registry there. You can look that up yourselves if you want. You can see where all of Apple's DNS records point to. So I actually confront the guy and I said, sir, no, this is coming out of Frankfurt, Germany. Here's your phone number. Here's this, here's this, here's this. If you want me to believe at this point you are actually Apple support, please do a push notification to my phone because I know you, Apple, have that capability. And anyone that has an Apple or an iOS device knows that those push notifications are usually multi-factor authentications that happen on Apple devices, and Apple can initiate them snap whenever they want. So I asked him to do that, and he said, well, sir, I've tried to talk you down. You're obviously very sophisticated. Good luck to you. Click. Done. Right? So I was like, okay, professor is still smart enough, dodged the bullet. Fast forward, it is now 8:45 p.m. professor time. I get a phone call again. This one doesn't say from San Francisco. This one says from Apple Inc. And I went, okay, here we go again. I pick it up and it goes, hello, sir. This is so-and-so from Apple with this case number. We're calling you at your request for blah, blah. I said, all right, let me stop you right there. I didn't make this request. And he's like, you didn't? I'm like, no, let me tell you what happened today. And I ran him through the story I just told all of you. And he went, give me that phone number again. Give me that IP. All right, we're going to take that very seriously. Here's what we're going to do, sir. Since you didn't make that phone call, let's go into your settings. Can you confirm that the devices that you have there are supposed to be yours? I went, yes, those are all of my devices. There's nothing extra. There's nothing that shouldn't be there. He said, cool. Your email address has probably been in a breach before, right? I'm like, yes, professor's had his email address for multiple decades at this point. And he went, okay, that's probably what happened there. You acted correctly, and did you try to contact Apple, let this know? I said, yeah, I tried to email an executive relations rep's email that I still had from way back yonder. It kicked back. He said, okay, you tried to do the right thing. What I'm going to do is, here is my name. Here is the email address I'm going to be emailing you from at apple.com. And here is the links you're going to see in this email. And everything that he said was exactly what it was. I checked the email headers. They were confirmed from Apple, so I felt comfortable with that. And everything they gave me was an official way to contact Apple. And he took a lot of notes and said, we're very grateful and we take it very seriously when somebody tries to impersonate Apple. Thank you for pulling all of that information and giving it to us. We'll take it from here. So that's how Professor spent a good chunk of his Thursday. Cowboy, how about that for some fun?
I love it, and what a great example of how they are getting more sophisticated, right?
This
Even
guy
for
spoke
us,
perfect English, and had a good script. Like, that's why I started talking to him and was willing to be compliant. Like, everything, nothing set off my alarm bells except for the fact that I didn't initiate that process at all.
Right, and I mean, to an average user, he probably would have got them right, because everyday users don't do the lookups, and that's why we're here doing this podcast, because we want people to understand these simple tools that are available for free, right? Like DNS lookup, simple things that you can do where, yeah, especially if you didn't initiate it, already you should be on guard, right? The cold calls, they're able to spoof some IPs, they're able to spoof phone numbers, right? Yep. You can't rely on the old traditional go-tos of, like, you know, I've had my phone ring and it says, I think it said Xfinity or Comcast cable on it, right? That's how it came up on my phone. I'm like, oh, legit. It took a while. Same thing. This is a while back, so I don't remember the details, but same thing. It took a while before I started catching on And I was like, dang, it showed up as Comcast on my phone. So you can't even
Yeah,
trust, right,
can't even trust
the
that.
the old school stuff anymore. So
I,
what a great
I,
story, though.
I mean, I was just the warning here is your social engineering attacks, especially this person, like I said, had a British sounding accent. It could have been um, Southeast Asian English, whatever, but he super convincing English to a perfect T. There was nothing about anything in the way they spoke. Not that that really matters because there's IT support everywhere in the world that, speaks with various commands of English. I'm sure we're all used to that if you're a native English speaker, and vice versa, depending on what other language you might speak as your native language. But this was super convincing. And Cowboy, you're 100% right. Had I not been a person who, dare I say, could be considered an expert in this field, um, I would have easily been had easily. Like if it, like my parents, there's no way they would have caught on to this. I think my regular friends, not my digitized ones, easily would have been captured by this. Right. I would think almost mass majority. This is one of those type of social engineering attacks that you really need to be on the lookout for. So the warning signs here are, if you get, even if it's a legitimate and verifiable support case number and email from Apple or from any of your providers, and you can confirm that the email address is valid, it means that somebody found your email address through a hack, not that they hacked you, but a data breach from someone else, and has exploited the fact that your email address was in that breach on a domain where they're interested, and are now initiating something so that they can lure you into a belief structure that someone is going to call you from Apple or your provider to help you. And if that is a scenario that starts to happen for you, I would immediately not believe anything that comes out and challenge everything. Know how your devices and how that provider authenticates to your devices. You have to know their procedures. And this is stuff that people don't have time for, but this is what we have to do these days, right? Know the procedures and challenge procedures or websites that don't make sense. If someone wants to send you to a website that doesn't end in the official domain of that provider, walk away. Hang up the phone. There is nothing there for you except a problem that will follow. And
Yeah.
that's the moral of my story.
And sometimes you get around that too by having write a different email in a different domain as the backup email, right, or recovery email, and you can say, hey, send me an email there, right? Because if they're in the system legit, they should be able
They
to
should
do
be able
that.
to do
But
that.
in this case, he couldn't send a push notification. He wouldn't have been able to send an email to the backup, right? So some simple steps to protect yourselves.
Yeah, just really scary, close to home, right? Glad I dodged that bullet. Okay, so with that, let's get on to our top story for tonight. Actually, here's the overview for the episode besides the professor gets hacked. Tonight, we're going to delve into some of the latest cybersecurity news that we were able to find of interest. Not that there wasn't already another tonnage this week. Focusing on a major incident affecting Mark and Spencer's and other stories from around the world. We're going to provide some analysis on those stories. And we're going to explore implications for you, the individuals and businesses. Our top story involves the London retailer Marks and Spencer's having a or actually having a cybersecurity nightmare unfold on them. A cyber attack has struck Mark and Spencer's, affecting their contactless payment and click and collect services. The incident began on the 25th of April and left customers unable to use services for multiple days. So that happened, I guess, yesterday, as of this recording, London time, today, our time, just by looking at the clock right now as we record this. M&S has enlisted a third-party cybersecurity firm for forensics and is working with the United Kingdom's National Cybersecurity Center, or NCSC, to determine the cause and the extent of the breach. So, what's the problem here? Well, if you rely on digitized services and there isn't another method to enact or engage those services, you're now out of luck for days. Ouch. this is where we're going. I'm surprised that we don't hear more about this. If you're affecting contactless payment, like, does that mean that their entire NFC infrastructure is now compromised? Like, I have questions, I don't have answers. Cowboy?
Yeah, I mean, how big is that, right? How deep does it go? It was down for an entire week, so that to me says these attackers got in pretty deep, right? That, as we said, they took all the payment stuff down. By the way, the NCSC in the UK is basically their versions of our CISA agency.
Good point. Good point. Didn't point that out. And I misspoke. It didn't start on the 25th. That was the date of the reporting. So thank you for saying that a week back.
Yeah. And so, yeah, again, everybody is susceptible, right? Bigger just means bigger target. Yeah, you're spending more money on cybersecurity, but it doesn't matter. One weakness, one vulnerability is all it takes. And this goes back to our last episode where we talked about why the CSVs program is so important, right? Because it only takes one weakness.
Yeah, absolutely, right. This is something that we hound on is the defender needs to be right 100% of the time, because no software is 100% bulletproof, and the attacker only needs to be right once. I don't know how much money is ultimately been affected by this one. I wasn't able to find that before we went to recording. But obviously a major retailer like this, it's probably several $1 million, or at least several $100,000 is what I would guess at this point.
And they had to pass out refunds.
But sure. There's a systemic problem here, right? Even if they get this fixed and cleared up, right? You now have reputation problems. Why am I going to go back and trust that retailer with anything? Now some people may be stuck in it, and that may be just their routine, and like no one's going to change on that, sure. But other people are like, no. I'm going to take my business elsewhere. I'm going to go somewhere else because you guys don't have your act together.
100%.
And I'm not saying that Marks and Spencer's doesn't have their act together. If anyone ends up listening from Marks and Spencer's, I'm sure you guys work hard and do your best, and that's great. But that's a perceptive loss of reputation, and that's the problem that I'm suggesting, right? That because this happened to you, and it could have happened through no fault of your own, right? Again, defender needs to be right 100% of the time, which is a near impossibility. Because this happened to them, the reputation cost is now built into this profile. It's not necessarily because Mark and Spencer actively did anything wrong or didn't do what they were supposed to do to protect the data. They could have done everything right and still had this compromise. And that's something just to keep in mind.
Right. I mean, when you look at, MITRE, right, an FFRDC who one of its
specialises in
cybersecurity, right? They were hacked a year ago about. And so if you have like one of the premier cybersecurity firms or FFRDCs getting hacked, it just reinforces the fact that it happens to everybody, right? Because it only takes one thing. And it was a 0 day, and you can't plan for 0 days, right?
Nope.
So that's a little less of a punch in the nose, right? Vice like, oh, I didn't, patch my stuff timely. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The trust in the company, right? The brand, it takes a hit irregardless.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a friend of mine who works at NVIDIA, and he was talking to me about how there is a push in industry to use artificial intelligence. Surprise, someone from NVIDIA talking about AI, but use artificial intelligence to have it be able to set up some of that monitoring by having real-time ingest of CVE data. So this goes back to last story on why CVE is also so important, so that the AI itself can do the monitoring and alerting in near real time to the defenders, who now can focus their energies on mitigation, patching, an active defense, as opposed to having to find a vulnerability first. The system can now tell them what's vulnerable in near real time, so long as it's able to get the data. That
Uh,
I think that's not only necessary, it is absolute in where we're going. Because if you don't think that attackers are using that type of technology to find exploits in real time to then write an exploit and attack as soon as possible, you are already behind the power curve.
Right, and I think behavioral analytics is where AI could have also helped
Oh
here
yeah,
too, right? When you look at the business transactions, I gotta believe there were telltale signs that something weird was going on, right? You know how your business
absolutely.
runs on a daily basis. The the way people spend money is there's a trend that's there, right? And when attacks happen, the trend changes. And AI, as you said, is the best tool available to ingest that in real time or near real time and be able to see faster than a human ever can. Hey, something weird's going on. Let's go take a look. They could have potentially saved, um, a bulk of that money if they had that. If they had that in place, I'm assuming they didn't.
Yeah,
We don't know enough about it.
we don't know enough about it at this point. But yeah, it'll unravel. It'll come out. Since we're talking about CV, something I wanted to bring up, a point of interest for everybody. Um, Came across a public post today. You can search for it yourself, from the former director of CISA and an old friend of mine, Jen Easterly, where she discussed her point of view on the everything that's going on with CVE and the formation of the CVE Foundation. And she expressed some concerns of how the CVE Foundation was formed, and by those that were forming it, and how some stuff may have been done, maybe not alludes to maybe it wasn't done fully above board. I don't have enough information. It is a good read. She is, as always, well articulated, super smart person. So I take her opinion as a very valid one, especially in this space and in this community, as just about anybody should. I don't see Jen as a hyper political person. I see her as a cyber warrior. I've known her since she was in the military, and I've known her ever since. So I use that term not lightly when I talk about it with her. And I think that you should take her opinion and take her words with a level of weight to them. Again, go out, find that on your own. I won't necessarily have any links to it here. But it is available, and it was a good read, related to the CVE topic. And that's where I'll leave that. Okay. Next, our next story. The Indian company Poon Company loses 6.5 core, or CRORE rupees, which it translates to about 751,000 US dollars, to a man-in-the-middle cyber attack. So this man-in-the-middle cyber attack compromised the digital communications between the company and the bank, and that's where the loss happened, which that should frighten anybody. The attackers intercepted the traffic between the company servers and their bank servers to carry out unauthorized transactions. Wow. So SSL not going to save us? Is that what happened here? I'm not sure, but that's terrifying. If you can't trust that you're being able to actively facilitate your financial information between you and the bank that's supposed to be there, what system breakdown, like a system error? I can't think straight on that one.
Right. What are you doing? Right. Like, hello, wake up. By the way, I just want everyone to know that the average monthly living wage in India is 227 US dollars. Right. So for those that are saying, oh, it was only $750,000, no, no, no. In Indian rupee values, that's I don't know the direct correlation, but it's a lot. It's a lot for them, right? So yeah, it feels strange to talk about a topic of your communications with the bank weren't secure. Like, what? Right? Like, it's still happening. Man in the middle attack, a true classic, right? Old school. We still teach it today. We still talk about various ways to even defeat encryption with man in the middle attacks, right? Because if you use PKI, if you're a man in the middle at the beginning, you can intercept the keys, thus rendering the encryption invalid, or you can change it with your own keys. There's all kinds of different ways to do that. So if you're a company working with a bank, you should have a consistent, secure path where you shouldn't be able to do that. And using good encryption that can't be broken by the average criminal.
Right. Just to help with the math there, to make it sound more damaging than not, right? So again, Cyber Cowboy's right. Like 271 rupees is the average pay you said for a week. Is that right?
227 US dollars, or 19,400. Yeah, or 90,000 rupees is a monthly living wage.
So let's convert this into base Indian rupees to make it sound more impactful for that particular country's currency, right? So 751,000 US dollars converts into base rupees of 64,169,332 rupees. So again, a multi-million, I would say dollar, but in this case, rupee attack, right? Not insubstantial for that area of the world. This is a major hit to them. It may not seem like much from the United States perspective, but that's a lot of money wherever you are, right? I mean, I don't know about you, Cowboy. I could use an extra $750,000.
I do like a little more money. I mean, and they're a major IT and manufacturing company in India, right? So IT and manufacturing. They are teamed with Accenture, Wipro, Infosys, some major notable companies.
Yeah, definitely. Again, and my big concern here is I don't know exactly what side the fault was on, who was more vulnerable to the man in the middle attack on this. But if they're attacking the comms channel, the data channel, whatever you want to call it, between the institution and the bank, that's a major concern. Because if it can happen to them, it has the potential to happen to somebody else. And maybe we're not talking about hundreds of thousands in US dollars. Maybe then we're talking about multi-millions or billions.
This was not by accident, right?
No.
This was a calculated attack. They knew the paths of the links, right? They set up, they did reconnaissance, they did their homework.
Yeah. All right. So let's bring it a little smaller, and let's make parents in general worry with our next story. So our next story is cyber attacks target Baltimore schools, according to the state's attorney's office. So multiple cyber attacks have targeted the Baltimore City public school system and the state's attorney's office. The attacks resulted in data breaches and disrupted services for students, parents, and staff. Authorities are investigating the incidents and working to secure their networks. So here we go. If you thought your kid's data was safe because you are a responsible parent, you don't let them on social media, you don't let them have their own accounts, and if you do, you got your parental settings, now you got to worry about whether or not the school is safe enough either. Because I promise you, even a school system as big as Baltimore City Schools, not going to have the cybersecurity heft simply because of budgetary reasons that they probably need for their system-wide stuff. And let's just say, icing on the cake is the state's attorney's office, because there's nothing of important data in the state's attorney's office, is there, Cowboy?
No, none whatsoever. None.
It's just, that's terrifying. That's terrifying as a person with small digital clones, that like, I do my best to protect them at home, right? I've taught, they know that their dad is a professor of cyber. They know that their dad's a cyber expert. They talk about it, their friends, and who they don't believe that their dad knows all this stuff, or is that as a digital construct at this point. But they understand, and they are, at least for their age, cyber savvy. As much as I can water things down to them so that they do things right. They don't go on social media that they're not supposed to. They do everything they're supposed to do. So even with them doing it right here at home, even if they acted right at school, the school's getting compromised. So my kids are already, too bad for you guys. I guess, you're going to be compromised from now until you expire.
Right, and this was a for-profit attack, right? They attackers wanted to sell the data back to the schools, right? So most people think of it's ransomware. They lock everything up and then demand payment. Nope. In this case, it's a hey, you don't want us to sell it to other people, right? We'll sell it back to you. And if the school says no, they're going to go sell it on the dark web. Right. So this is nothing but for-profit exploitation of kids, which you attack a big bank. You're a jerk, but I'm probably not going to hate you all that much. But you go after kids' data, right? That's what sets me off. That's a whole another level of scumbag. And
Well, and I mean, ultimately, they're doing it because they know that they're going to get it, right? It's your kids. Don't you want your kids to be safe? Look, here, you're going to pay, and
one side or another, right?
Again, yeah.
Yeah. If the school doesn't pay, the dark web will. So someone's going to pay.
Yeah, it's just terrifying, right? But this will lead us into our last story. I think this is a good sentiment, not necessarily from the person stating it. Like that could be a long-term debate in a lot of circles otherwise, but all of this leads to our last story, which is it's time to build unhackable immune systems to counter AI-driven attacks. And this is coming from Eugene Kaspersky. For those that know,
sounds familiar.
Yeah, he is the co-founder of Kaspersky Labs. And he argues that the current cybersecurity solutions are not enough to combat advanced AI-driven attacks. He has suggested, as we said in the title, to create, quote, unhackable immune systems, unquote, that can adapt and learn from threats in real time. Well, Eugene, I do not disagree with you. I just don't know if we're there yet. I think we're going to need AI to beat AI, and that's going to create a digital arms race like that, which we haven't seen yet. That's my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's a fascinating concept. I've sat in a briefing from a very smart person a couple years ago who tried to explain cyber like the human body, with a immune system and all this, and how digital flows through like the blood system. And it was funny because as the only other cyber guy in the room, I could actually follow it. Everyone else in the room was like, what the heck is he talking about? Because this guy is like, double PhD, like too smart for his own good to talk to normal people. And then I think about how, with on average, the people I interact with, if you say automate, they lose their mind. And if you say AI, they might lose their mind, right? So it's a culture shift. It's a paradigm shift and the willingness to be able to give up some of that human interactive control and be like, let the network fight and heal itself. Because people still are like, oh God, Terminator, right? The rise of the robots, all hail our digital overlords, right? They're like, the AI is going to lock me out of my own system and all this.
I still believe that's a real possibility. I think if we get to AGI, artificial general intelligence, I still believe that's a real possibility. I'm not saying it will happen, but I think it could. That is a path that we could easily stumble on because the market in AI and Cowboy, you could devil's advocate me here if you want to, is moving so fast because people want to maximize their return on investment in this space. That I think that there's going to be some actors that are going to want to race to be first at all costs, and that may end up being the backfire point. Whereas other actors may not race to be first at all costs and may put security checks in place. Those are the ones I'm not worried about because they're actually thinking with some sort of appropriate compass. The ones that are just like, I'm going to be first to market, I'm going to make the most money. That's great. Like I'm all for profit. But there's a level of responsibility that has to happen. And if that was to happen, there is not a government on this planet that is going to be able to respond fast enough to an AGI based cyber catastrophe.
Yeah, I mean, aside from just pure profit, some people are racing because some not so friendly countries are racing, and like you said, it's already a digital arms race, right? Like, well, we have to get there before they do to stop them, right? It's a digital version of make the bomb first before they do concept.
Yeah, make it first, make it bigger. They made one this big. We're gonna make one bigger, and that's a bad place to be in. So, something we'll do this week that I haven't done in the weeks past, just to give you guys an idea of some of the stories we're not covering tonight, some other stuff that's just out there and that you can research if you're interested in, right? Okay, so a cyber attack in Long Beach, California may have included sensitive information. Let's see what else we have. We have businesses are failing to prevent cyber attacks, according to a report that you can find on MSN.com. Microsoft is nearing a cybersecurity overhaul in the wake of a 2023 linked China attack. Let's see. Complaints about ransomware attacks on U.S. infrastructure have risen 9%, according to the FBI. And the city of Abilene, I guess that's in Big County, files a catastrophe notice due to a cyber attack. And those are just some of the other things that happened in the last 5 days, 6 days. And that's not all that's happened. Like, there's just too much to cover. We could, Cowboy, when our support gets big enough, everybody, and we appreciate the support we already have, but we need more. When it gets big enough and we start doing some live time, because that I think is on our roadmap, we could go and wrap on all this stuff for more than the length of the podcast. But I think that'll be a little more even free-flowing than this is. And honestly, at that point, a little bit of community input, a little back and forth in any type of live chat scenario we have would be good. But there's just too much. And there's stuff that even us, in all our advanced powers here in the digital SOC, we're not going to be able to talk about or synthesize fast enough for you all.
100%. I think it'd be exciting to have people interact and like I said, there's so many stories, right? What do you want to hear? What do you want to know about? Is there an attack you heard about you want to know more about, right? Like having that direct dialogue, like you said, on our roadmap one day is an exciting prospect.
I think so too. All right, Cowboy, anything else you want to cover tonight?
Hey, digital world, keep your packets clean and your cookies encrypted.
And I'm your professor of CyberRisk. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. That's all for the news this week. I'm your professor of CyberRisk. We'll talk again soon. If you like this podcast, share it with your colleagues and friends. Your support is how we are able to continue to make this content. Thank you.